Imagine living a life of fame and fortune only to find yourself quietly aging in a world that once worshipped you. Discover the surprising tales of 30 music legends now in their 80s. Their lives today will astonish you. 30. Fabian.
This is the first time I ever felt this way.
What happened when Fabian faced his greatest challenge? Fabian was born in 1943. With no experience but looks to die for, he was discovered one day by record promoters and artificially groomed for rock and roll stardom. From 1959 to 1960, Fabian recorded a number of top 10 hits, including Tiger, Hound Dog Man, and what would be his signature song, Turn Me Loose. The invasion of the Beatles in the mid-60s left Fabian and many of his contemporaries by the musical wayside. He continued to hang on and build himself as Fabian Forte for a time in low-budget films, including A Bullet for Pretty Boy, 1970, in which he played the notorious criminal Pretty Boy Floyd. He also made frequent appearances on the traveling nostalgia review circuit, courtesy of Dick Clark. 29. Dion.
But I also like to give them the impression that I'm moving ahead, moving forward.
Discover the surprising twist in Dion's legendary career. Dion Francis DiMucci, better known as Dion, is a songwriter whose work has incorporated elements of doo-wop, rock, and R&B styles, and most recently, straight blues. He is best remembered for the singles Runaround Sue, The Wanderer, Ruby Baby, and Lovers Who Wander, among his other hits. Dion's popularity waned in the mid-1960s. He was hooked on heroin at 15, survived an overdose at 16, and eventually formed a vocal group, the Belmonts, that was named after an avenue in the neighborhood. The pressures and the drugs had caught up with Dion by the mid-60s, turning his life into a nightmare darkened by thoughts of suicide. Alienated, Dion moved to Florida in 1968 with his wife and baby daughter in hopes of rebuilding his life. After embracing Christianity in 1968, he gave up drugs and continued to make records. 28. Debbie Harry. How did Debbie Harry redefine rock's boundaries? Debbie Harry, born on July 1st, 1945, is best recognized as the lead vocalist of the punk rock band Blondie, which was formed in the mid-1970s. The band gained significant popularity in the late 70s and early 80s with hits like Heart of Glass, Call Me, and Rapture. However, it was not just their music that garnered attention. Harry's striking blonde hair, edgy fashion sense, and charismatic stage presence made her an iconic figure in pop culture. Debbie Harry has been candid about the fact that superstardom doesn't get rid of the sort of feelings that mere mortals struggle with. Her entire life has been clouded by a fear of abandonment stemming from her parents' rejection, and she's also spoken about how she was raped in the early 70s. Being raped by some stranger against my will at knife point, you know. It wasn't a happy moment in my life. 27. Keith Richards.
It was a fascination with American music. Yeah, that was what it was down to.
Uncover the secret behind Keith Richards' timeless appeal. Keith Richards, born on December 18, 1943, is a titan of the music industry. He's best known for his role as the co-principal songwriter and lead guitarist of the legendary rock band The Rolling Stones. His debut solo album, Talk Is Cheap, released in 1988, received critical acclaim and demonstrated his ability to thrive independently. Richards was thrown into a deep depression after the loss of his son Tara back in 1976. Going on stage has saved Richards' life in more than one way. The heartbreaking incident plunged Richards into a dark place mentally, and in a harrowing confession in a past interview, he said that shortly after he found out about his son's death, he was due to go on stage. According to the guitarist, he had two options at the time. He was either going to go on stage or kill himself. Thankfully, Richards was saved by his band and decided to go on stage that night. 26. Sissy Houston. Explore the untold story of Sissy Houston's rise to fame. Emily Sissy Houston had a successful career singing backup for such artists as Roy Hamilton, Dionne Warwick, Elvis Presley, and Aretha Franklin. Houston embarked on a solo career, winning 2 Grammy Awards for her work. Houston was also the mother of singer Whitney Houston. It can truly be said that Sissy Houston has lived a life of triumph and tragedy. Sissy is the mother of music icon Whitney Houston. Upon hearing of the death of her daughter, Sissy Houston's life was changed forever. While the world had lost an iconic artist, Houston had lost her own beloved child. 25. Steve Winwood. What inspired Steve Winwood's most iconic songs? Steve Winwood was born on May 12, 1948. During his tenure with the group, they released several hits like Gimme Some Lovin' and I'm a Man. In 1967, Winwood co-founded Traffic, a rock band that blended diverse genres including folk, psychedelic rock, and jazz, crafting a unique sound that was both innovative and influential. Winwood has been slower to accept the role of an older musician, and through the 1990s pressed ahead with a series of albums of original material which largely failed to match the illustrious standards of what had come before. 24. Robert Plant.
Way across the journey, yeah, because he had no idea. Nobody knew what was going on.
Find out the truth behind Robert Plant's mysterious hiatus. Robert Plant, born on August 20th, 1948, embarked on his musical journey as a child. He was drawn to the blues and rock music, with Elvis Presley as one of his earliest influences. His career began in the late 1960s, but it wasn't until joining Led Zeppelin in 1968 that he shot to international fame. As the band's frontman, Plant's distinctive voice became a defining feature of the hard rock genre. Despite having a long, prosperous music career, Plant's life wasn't all smooth and serene. Like many other rock stars of his time, the performer has suffered his fair share of tragedy. In fact, his life has, at certain points, been just as dark and complex as the themes he explored in his songs. In July of 1977, Plant received a phone call from his wife, who told him their 5-year-old son K-Rack was sick with the stomach virus. A second phone call came later that day. K-Rack had died. Needless to say, the band's frontman never healed from this trauma. 23. Dave Mason. Why did Dave Mason vanish from the spotlight? David Thomas Mason first found fame with the rock band Traffic. Dave Mason left Traffic in 1969 to pursue a solo career in the US. Dave has penned over 100 songs, has 3 gold albums, Alone Together, Dave Mason, Mariposa de Oro, and platinum album Let It Flow, which contained the top 10 single, We Just Disagree. Dave Mason has taken hits from every direction over the course of his nearly 50-plus year career. In his career, Mason made one bad business move after another, picking the wrong managers, signing the wrong contracts. He had the usual problems with drugs and alcohol, and with relationships with lovers and band members. But at the end of the day, as always, it was the music that mattered. His own career is sort of like Fleetwood Mac, observed Fleetwood Mac, one of Mason's oldest and closest friends. He's been here, there, and everywhere, but he's always found a way of prevailing. 22. Jackson Browne. Learn about the hidden struggles of Jackson Browne. Jackson Browne, born on October 9, 1948, would go on to be one of the most influential singer-songwriters of his generation. Browne's eponymous debut album, released in 1972, featured the hit Doctor My Eyes and established him as a formidable force in the music industry. His music often mirrored his personal life and societal concerns. The year 1976 had been devastating for singer-songwriter Jackson Browne. His wife, model Phyllis Major, had committed suicide, leaving Browne to raise their toddler son alone. The grief of her death permeated his fourth album, The Pretender, 1976, most notably on songs like hit single Here Come Those Tears Again, co-written by Major's mother, Nancy Farnsworth. 21. Patti Smith.
I keep them close at hand. I don't think of all of these people. I know physically they aren't here. They're a part of my daily life.
Discover Patti Smith's untold journey to musical greatness. Patti Smith was born on December 30th, 1946. Smith's musical career is characterized by her unabashed expression of political and social commentary. Notable albums such as Easter, 1978, and Wave, 1979, demonstrated her ability to weave complex narratives into her songs. Like the rest of us, Patti Smith is just trying to stay sane. On April 26, 1967, at age 20, Smith gave birth to her first child, a daughter, and placed her up for adoption. In late 1994, her husband, Fred Sonic Smith, once a guitarist in pre-punk rockers MC5, died of a heart attack, leaving her with 2 young children. Less than a month later, her brother Todd, to whom she was extremely close, died suddenly. Both her parents also passed away. 20. Mick Jagger.
I hear is the sound of rain falling.
How did Mick Jagger defy the odds to become a rock icon? Mick Jagger, born on July 26, 1943, is a renowned figure in the music industry, best known as the lead vocalist of the Rolling Stones. His flamboyant style, characterized by energetic performances and provocative lyrics, pushed the boundaries of rock music and influenced generations of artists. Beyond the Rolling Stones, Jagger also pursued a solo career, releasing his debut album She's the Boss in 1985. No one would argue that Mick Jagger's life has been free of challenge and controversy. His well-documented baggage includes drug abuse, infidelity, run-ins with the law, and more recent health issues. He's endured divorce, breakup, and significant loss of people close to him, including longtime drummer Charlie Watts, who died in 2021. 19. Pete Townshend. Uncover Pete Townshend's surprising influence on music. As the lead guitarist and chief songwriter for The Who, Pete Townshend has left an indelible mark on the world of rock and roll. A true musical visionary, his iconic windmill guitar strumming and innovative compositions laid the groundwork for countless bands that followed in his footsteps. Townshend was on a sex offenders register for 5 years beginning in 2003 after admitting he had used his credit card to access a child sexual abuse images website. Townshend said that he accessed the images as research in a campaign against child sexual abuse, specifically to prove that British banks were complicit in channeling the profits from pedophile rings. Authorities could not prove that the website accessed by Townshend involved children, and no incriminating evidence was found on his personal computer. 18. Roger Waters.
Not really. I haven't really got time for regrets.
What drove Roger Waters to create his masterpiece? Born in Surrey, England in 1943, Roger Waters is an iconic figure in the world of music. Known predominantly as the co-founder, bassist, and principal songwriter of the phenomenally successful rock band Pink Floyd, his influence has reached far beyond the confines of the band. Amidst creative differences, Waters left Pink Floyd in 1985 and began a legal battle with the band regarding their continued use of the name and material. Waters did not want the band to use the name Pink Floyd without him. In 2005, Waters said the period of his departure had been a bad, negative time, and that he regretted his part in the negativity. Why should I have imposed my feeling about the work and what it was worth on the others if they didn't feel the same? I was wrong in attempting to do that. In 2013, Waters said he regretted the lawsuit and had failed to appreciate that the Pink Floyd name had commercial value independent of the band members. 17. Julie Andrews.
Could have been a little bit saccharine at times.
Explore Julie Andrews' unexpected turn in her career. Julie Andrews was born on October 1st, 1935, and her breakthrough came in 1954 when she starred as Eliza Doolittle in the Broadway production of My Fair Lady. Her performance paved the way for her film debut in Walt Disney's Mary Poppins in 1964, a role that won her an Academy Award for Best Actress. The following year, Andrews charmed audiences once again as Maria von Trapp in The Sound of Music, a film adored worldwide and one that solidified her status as a Hollywood icon. In 1997, Andrews had to leave the Broadway production Victor Victoria when she noticed that her voice was becoming hoarse. She underwent surgery in New York, supposedly to remove non-cancerous nodules from her throat. The surgery left her with permanent damage to her vocals, and she ended up suing the surgeons. Her 4-octave range was no more and was replaced by a simple alto, albeit a fragile one. She underwent 4 subsequent surgeries which were successful in enhancing her speaking voice. However, they could not restore her former singing voice. 16. Dolly Parton.
What's going on? Then I say, hey!
Discover Dolly Parton's secret to enduring success. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on January 19, 1946. Dolly Parton turned success as a country songwriter and singer into not only pop music stardom, but also work as an actor, a successful businesswoman, and a philanthropist. In 1984, Dolly was diagnosed with uterine cancer. A routine surgery would prevent the spread of the disease, but it would be emotionally challenging for Dolly. She underwent a hysterectomy, which meant that she would never be able to have children. This was devastating news for Dolly, who had always wanted to become a mother. She fell into a deep depression and even contemplated suicide. 15. Dionne Warwick.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call.
How did Dionne Warwick overcome her greatest challenge? Dionne Warwick, born December 12, 1940, possesses one of popular music's greatest voices and has charted more times than I can count with timeless hits like I Say a Little Prayer in the 60s, Then Came You in the 70s, and That's What Friends Are For in the 80s. Dionne Warwick, who earned millions of dollars across a half-century of stardom, now lives on a paltry $10 a month once her bills are paid off. She is almost broke, with only $1,000 in her bank account and a staggering $10.7 million in debts. She owns almost nothing from her high-flying past. She claims just $25,500 in assets. 14. Barbra Streisand.
I was the girl with no father and a good voice.
Uncover the truth behind Barbra Streisand's legendary voice. Barbra Streisand has achieved success across multiple fields of entertainment, being among the first performers awarded an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. EGOT. Barbra Streisand grew up starving for acceptance and affection. In 1963, Barbra Streisand and Elliot Gould got married as Streisand's star was on the rise. She gave birth to their son Jason in 1966, but the marriage didn't last and they divorced in 1971. Although her career flourished, Barbra Streisand's love life did not. While she had a long-term relationship with hairdresser turned movie producer John Peters, she also had a series of shorter romances over the course of many years. In the 1980s and 1990s, she dated Andre Agassi, Don Johnson, and Liam Neeson. Barbra Streisand spent decades unlucky in love before finding happiness again. In 1997, she met actor James Brolin, and on July 1st, 1998, they married at her Malibu home. 13. Carly Simon. What inspired Carly Simon's most famous songs? Carly Elizabeth Simon rose to fame in the 1970s with a string of hit records. Her 13 top 40 US hits include Anticipation, You Belong to Me, Coming Around Again, and her 4 gold certified singles, You're So Vain, number 1, Mockingbird, number 5, a duet with James Taylor, Nobody Does It Better, number 2 from the 1977 James Bond film The Spy Who Loved Me, and Jessie. She was ignored by her father, sexually abused at age 7, and, even at her commercial peak, treated like a notch on the bedpost by more hitmakers than could fit on the Billboard charts. And James Taylor? The love of Carly Simon's life gave her 2 children, and a decade of dysfunctional heartbreak. So talented and so fragile, Simon deserved better than how she was treated. 12. Barry Manilow.
Everything else I have, this one's for you.
Explore Barry Manilow's journey to becoming a pop sensation. Barry Manilow is 81 years old. His hit recordings include Could It Be Magic, Looks Like We Made It, Mandy, I Write the Songs, Can't Smile Without You, Weekend in New England, and Copacabana at the Copa. Due to his fame, he kept his personal life a secret and only recently came out as gay in 2017 and revealed that he had been in a relationship with his manager Gary Keefe for over 35 years. Manilow had married his high school sweetheart Susan Deichsler back in 1964. They divorced in 1966, and at the time, Manilow said that she was a perfect wife, but he was immature and left to pursue his music career to the fullest. Although he has now come out, he said that he was indeed in love with Deichsler, and his sexual orientation had nothing to do with the dissolution of their marriage. 11. Steve Miller. Discover Steve Miller's surprising musical evolution. Stephen Haworth Miller is the founder and only remaining original member of the Steve Miller Band, which he founded in 1966 and is the principal songwriter, lead singer, harmonicist, keyboardist, and one of the guitarists. He began his career in blues and blues rock and evolved to a more pop-oriented arena rock genre during the mid-1970s through the early 1980s, releasing popular singles and albums. In 2016, Miller was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The ceremony caused controversy because of Miller's disparaging remarks about the experience being unpleasant. His speech that night only hinted at his anger. Miller himself said part of his angry behavior that evening was because the hall vetoed his proposal to be inducted by Elton John, as he knows me and probably knows my music better than most people, and its controlling aspects such as the licensing contracts. 10. John Fogerty.
What they didn't tell me is you're going to follow the Grateful Dead.
What led John Fogerty to create his timeless hits? John Fogerty is one of the founding members of Creedence Clearwater Revival and is a singer, songwriter, and guitarist. He is 79 years old and still performs often. He founded the swamp rock band Creedence Clearwater Revival, CCR, for which he was the lead singer, lead guitarist, and principal songwriter. CCR had 9 top 10 singles and 8 gold albums between 1968 and 1972 and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993. For more than half a century, John Fogerty stood as the poster boy for all musicians who'd ever signed away rights to their publishing or master recordings and been unable to buy them back. But even Taylor Swift's radical decision to re-record all her old albums to do an end run around her former label selling her masters may not count as quite as bold as the stance Fogerty took for several decades, during which he refused to perform any of his classic late 60s and early 70s Creedence Clearwater Revival songs in protest of his inability to purchase publishing rights for that material. The sale of Fantasy Records to Concord Records in 2004 ended the 30-year estrangement between Fogerty and his former label, as the new owners took steps to restore royalty rights Fogerty had given up to be released from his contract with Fantasy in the mid-1970s. 9. Art Garfunkel.
I think I strove to move beyond my neighborhood and what I thought was speech that was uninspired, and I tried to be clearer and cleaner than that.
Uncover Art Garfunkel's hidden talents beyond music. Art Garfunkel is next on the list, sitting comfortably at 81. He's an American singer and writer, well known for his duo performances with Paul Simon. Simon and Garfunkel are a folk pop duo from the 1960s who paved their way to stardom with their influence on literary-focused college kids. In a career that spanned nearly 50 years, the pair created some real masterpieces. After a freak accident left Garfunkel with a damaged voice in early 2010, the singer wasn't sure he'd be able to perform ever again. That was tragic, he said. Singing since the age of 5, Garfunkel felt like he was losing a part of himself. Through a self-guided healing regimen of singing along to mellow vocalists and slowly integrating live performances back into his repertoire, Garfunkel was able to save his voice and his identity. 8. Carlos Santana. How did Carlos Santana achieve spiritual harmony through music? Carlos Santana rose to fame in the late 1960s and early 1970s in the United States with Santana, which pioneered a fusion of rock and roll and Latin American jazz. Its sound featured his melodic blues-based lines set against Latin American and African rhythms played on percussion instruments not generally heard in rock, such as timbales and congas. After Deborah King Santana, Carlos's wife of 34 years, filed for divorce in 2007, the inner life of her husband grew alarmingly dark. Carlos Santana seriously entertained thoughts of ending it all, and in 2008, he told Rolling Stone that he'd attempted suicide 7 times. Not only did the failure of his long marriage mentally upset the rock legend, but so did lingering thoughts, memories, and feelings of the regular abuse he suffered at the hands of a family friend beginning at the age of 10. Santana credits his spirituality and faith for helping him out of that very low place. You have to go through the darkest night of the soul to get to the brightest light of the day, he told Plain Truth. He also explained that forgiving his abuser was key to his own personal journey. Forgiveness, man. Forgiveness is incredibly liberating. 7. Smokey Robinson. Explore Smokey Robinson's enduring legacy in soul music. Smokey Robinson is one of the best R&B icons of our time, known as a singer, songwriter, producer, and even a former executive director. The professional is 84 years old and was one of the founders of the iconic Motown group, The Miracles. According to Robinson, he had affairs with multiple women while married to Claudette, among them an approximately year-long affair with Diana Ross. According to Robinson, Ross ended it because she felt uncomfortable as she was friends with Claudette, whom Robinson admitted he still loved. Robinson also had a son named Trey, born 1984, with another woman during his marriage to Claudette. After Robinson admitted to having fathered a child with a woman other than his wife, he filed for legal separation and later filed for divorce that was finalized in 1986. The Robinsons had also separated in 1974, and during that separation, Robinson engaged in an extramarital affair that inspired the song The Agony and the Ecstasy. 6. Paul Simon.
Because a vision softly creeping.
Discover Paul Simon's unexpected path to musical greatness. At 81 years old, Paul Simon remains one of the century's most celebrated singers and songwriters. His career has lasted more than 6 decades, and he continues to perform and speak in interviews today, even in his older age. Despite his huge success, Simon would often struggle with negative feelings and saw psychiatrists several times. In 1984, he said, "Most people look at me and wonder, how could that guy be depressed? And I now feel that people were seeing a more accurate picture of me than I was." 5. Neil Diamond.
Sweet Caroline.
What inspired Neil Diamond's most heartfelt songs? Neil Diamond is 82 years old and has left an extensive legacy during his time as a singer. He's among the best-selling musicians of all time, performing hits like Sweet Caroline and Forever in Blue Jeans to adoring audiences everywhere. The star was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2018, scuppering the Australian leg of his 50th anniversary tour. He went on to quit concert touring altogether as a result. This isn't his first serious health battle. Back in 1979, the singer-songwriter had back surgery to remove a benign tumor on his spinal cord. The operation lasted 9 hours, and he wrote goodbye letters to his loved ones, convinced he was going to die. 4. Rod Stewart. Uncover Rod Stewart's secret to staying relevant over the decades. Rod Stewart is a powerhouse from England, bursting onto the scene as a rock and pop singer and songwriter. He's 79 years old and is one of the best-selling singers of all time, known for his unique, raspy tone. Stewart tells the Daily Mail that he lost count of the women he bedded by his early 20s, and a few years later, he'd grown tired of the virtual escalator of leggy lovers. "I got bored of not feeling affectionate towards girls," he said in the interview. "I wanted to be in love. I wanted something special. After a while, it was sad. It was actually sad." Stewart goes on to say that he's rarely spent more than a few days without a woman in his life, which is part of the reason he's gone through wives like cigarettes. In reality, he's only been married 3 times, but he's fathered 8 kids with 5 women. As a young rocker with the Faces, he'd have one girl dropped off at the airport as another was picked up, but the girls never knew. 3. Billy Joel.
Here, stuck on a hill, outsiders inside the home.
Explore Billy Joel's journey from piano man to music icon. Billy Joel is an enigma. He is hands down one of the best songwriters of all time, yet he stopped releasing albums almost 3 decades ago. A true musical chameleon, he has been able to churn out wedding ballads like Just the Way You Are, sweeping jazz epics like New York State of Mind, rocked out history lessons like We Didn't Start the Fire, and new wave jams like It's Still Rock and Roll to Me with ease. And then, of course, there is the Steinbeckian lyrical genius of Piano Man. Billy Joel hasn't released a new album since 1993's River of Dreams. For one, he became bored with pop music. His struggle with alcohol also factored in. In the absence of liquid courage, he found he wasn't as willing to deal with the pain of coming up with lyrics. He told Howard Stern, "The worst thing about songwriting is the struggle. I love having written, I hate writing." 2. Linda Ronstadt. How did Linda Ronstadt redefine the role of women in rock? Linda Marie Ronstadt performed and recorded in diverse genres, including rock, country, light opera, the Great American Songbook, and Latin music. Ronstadt has earned 11 Grammy Awards, 3 American Music Awards, 2 Academy of Country Music Awards, an Emmy Award, and an Alma Award. She announced her retirement in 2011 and revealed shortly afterwards that she is no longer able to sing as a result of a degenerative condition initially diagnosed as Parkinson's disease, but later determined to be progressive supranuclear palsy. 1. Elton John. Discover the truth behind Elton John's remarkable career. Sir Elton John is one of pop music's great survivors. Born March 25, 1947, as Reginald Kenneth Dwight, he started to play piano at the early age of 4. He became the most successful pop artist of the 1970s, and he has survived many different pop fads, including punk, the New Romantics, and Britpop to remain one of Britain's most internationally acclaimed musicians. Elton John announced he was a bisexual in 1976, and in 1984, he married Renata Blauwell. The marriage lasted 4 years before he finally came to terms with the fact that he was actually homosexual. In the 1970s and 1980s, he suffered from drug and alcohol addiction and bulimia, but came through it. He is well known as a campaigner for AIDS research, and he keeps his finger on the pulse of modern music, enjoying artists such as Eminem, Radiohead, Coldplay, and Robbie Williams. If you enjoyed discovering their stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. And while you're here, why not check out our other videos? You never know what amazing stories await. Until next time, stay tuned and keep exploring with us.